Alright, so let's get right into charts. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys the breakdown of the trade that we took today inside the VIP. We'll go here inside the Telegram. Today we end up taking two trades. So one of the trade that we took was actually a market execution. This was at 8:14, so this was like 15 minutes after the New York session opened up. We had a position set up at 37.68 with the stop loss at 37.78. I also had a sell limit placed out with two entries, right? We had an entry at 37.72 and an entry at 37.76 with a stop loss above the 37.82, right? So the first trade it was taken, which was somewhere between these zones over here, which was simply a retracement back towards these areas, right? But I'm going to give you guys the whole entire breakdown, explaining to you guys the levels that I had marked up. But these were the two trades that we took. This trade over here ended up hitting take profit one. Whenever the 37.72 got active, this is where I told everyone, hey, close this entry, break even now, and just continue holding the second entry, which was at 37.72. So 37.72 was the trade of the day, which we end up hitting every single take profit, closing it out at a 300 pips at a 1-3 risk to reward. So the full profit end up hitting with this trade over here. Me personally, I did end up closing out this trade at 280 pips at a 1-2.8 risk to reward. So we go here into MetaTrader 4. For today balance, or for today profits with the sales that we end up taking, I did end up closing it out at $4,383 with 60 cents, which is this trade right over here. So this was the trade that we took today, which was amazing. If we go back into yesterday's trade, which I did send you guys the breakdown, the last 2 days in profits with this big account, right? We can go settings, you guys can see it is a live account. And this trade over here, this history, we are up almost $9,927 in 2 days, which is great. So we got 2 good days, running back to back big profits. Yesterday we caught a nice 1-7. Today we caught a nice 1-3. So we're almost up $10,000 in 2 trading days, which is amazing. Now I'm going to give you guys the full breakdown, explaining to you guys why did I look for sales around these zones and what pretty much I was expecting for the market to do. So let's go off first a higher time frame, right? So we're going to focus pretty much on what happened yesterday, price action, right? So obviously yesterday or the past couple of days with gold, right, we've been extremely bullish, just simply creating higher highs and higher lows. Yesterday, whenever price action came back and made these new all-time highs set over here around the 37.80 zone to the 37.90 zones, right? This were the all-time highs the price session came up, right? Now, there's obviously usual ways that price session starts having a retracement. So let's say that price session has been going to the markets all the way towards the upside. And let's say there's no structures over here. Usually the time where price session starts dropping down, it means that all of the buyers that has been buying the markets towards these zones over here, they're simply just taking the profits. If there's no structures right over here, that is a one way that the market can start having a type of retracement, right? So either one, price over here is coming, meaning that buyers are now taking profits. Same thing can go with sellers. Sellers can be taking profits, meaning that buyers are now stepping into the markets. In this case over here, buyers were in the markets, buyers were closing the profits, meaning that sellers are now stepping into the markets, right? Another way another retracement can happen can be during the news session, right? Let's say the news comes out negative or positive, the market can go anyways, right? Another way can be whenever price session taps into a previous structure. In this case over here, we do not have any type of previous structure. So the idea here was that obviously gold has been overbought, meaning that gold has been extremely bullish the past weeks, meaning that buyers are now slowly taking their profits, right? Very simple. The big players are now taking their profits. Now, what we trade simple price action. We trade market structure. We're simply just waiting for price action to have a switcher structure. Whenever it has a switcher structure, all we're simply doing is just simply react and adapt with the market. If price action is simply going a trend, all we're simply waiting for is for the retest of those broken structures so that we can either continue towards the upside or continue towards the downside, right? So this case over here, we go into the all-time highs. This is the all-time highs that price session formed yesterday at 37.85 to the 37.90. We did see that price session did reject over here. Not rejected, again, this is where buyers were taking their profits, but we did see that price session attempted, right, or these candles over here attempted to continue breaking higher, which failed. So again, this is going to be considered now as our major areas of resistance. This case over here, which was yesterday, was very simple. We had a broken structure of the 30 minutes. So yesterday breakdown, I explained to you guys that all we were trading was simply a breakout of these ranges, right? So this breakout, we got a nice break towards the downside, a retest to retest these broken structure. This is where price session left a very nice gap towards the downside. I explained to you guys these levels over here. If we go back into the 1 hour time frame, like I told you guys, we're continue being bullish. This was yesterday breakdown. So if you guys haven't watched yesterday breakdown, I do recommend it because I do explain pretty much the entire structure. So In this case over here, I explained to you guys these zones, which is the 37.55, right? So notice how price action had a perfect break towards the upside, came back, retested the structure. This is where I told you guys, price is still bullish until we start breaking underneath these lows over here and these lows over here, right? Which was today's market. But we respected these exact zones over here, these demand zone, areas of resistance, which turned into support. Price action came back here during the late session yesterday, and then we came back once again during the Asian session. Asian session, price session respected and started having a nice bounce plays towards the upside. Now, whenever price session started having a move towards the upside, the zones that I had marked up this morning was very simple, which is going to be these exact 30-minute lows right over here. These 30-minute lows over here is simply a broken structure. If you guys go back into the 15-minute time frame, you guys can also see that these lows over here is very similar to the lows that happened yesterday, right? So what happened between these lows over here? Yesterday we had a broken structure. Price session came back, retested it, support turned into resistance. We had a sell-off. Price session comes back once again. We rejected off a supply zone, off a lower time frame. We have another sell-off, right? Now, these two lows over here, we have this first lows over here, right? So check this out. We have this first lows over here, and then we also have these lows over here, which was simply respecting, meaning that it respected any type of value gap. I believe this was a fair value gap from yesterday that I explained to you guys. But from a lower time frame, this was a fair value gap as well, a lower time frame demand zone, right? From a 1 minute time frame. Price session was, constantly just rejecting it off until we finally have that broken structure beneath these entire lows over here, which obviously confirmed these entire sells. These zones over here, like I told you guys, where price session have retracement, it can either be previous structure. So obviously bullish over here, the price session over here has been bullish. We broke on around these structures over here, which price session respected it. Now, take a look into today's market session. Very similar. We have the tap, the retest, the broken structure, the first drop, and then the second one, which is simply rejecting off supply or taking above these highs over here, stopping out all of these entire buyers. So basically, this was a whole manipulation towards the upside to then have, the distribution towards the downside. In this case over here, this does matter, right? Like again, this does make sense simply because price session is breaking above a highs doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be buying the market right away. These are just simply structure. But what really happened yesterday was a very good idea to telling us what tomorrow price action or market structure is going to do. So yesterday, just by seeing price action having this nice drop towards the downside and having a nice 30-minute break of structure, it shows us that price action can have a continuation towards the sell, because this is fresh compared to what already been happening, right? What been happening was that price action has been extremely bullish. This over here is a fresh change of structure, a possibility of change of structure. Now, the reason why I say probability is because we still haven't broken underneath these lows over here, or we still haven't broken underneath these lows until today's market structure. So that's already showing us that price action can have a probability of switching structure from a bullish market towards a bearish market. So very simple. If we go in today's session, once price session was respecting off these entire demand zones over here, we start having a nice retracement. But notice exactly where the price session have a retracement from. We simply came back to retrace and retest these entire 30-minute structure. This intraday time frame structure, which at one point over here, it was holding at support till we finally got the breakout. Price session comes back over here. We kind of gap towards these zones, so that means that the seller still wasn't here. There was type of seller action, but again, with our system, with our strategy, we always want to wait for price session to come back and retest the structure. So this over here was a gap, a fake push towards the downside. If seller started taking the markets over here, they would have gotten stopped out. So this was a fake out. This was simply a gap towards these areas of interest. So this is where we do not want to react. On top of that, that wasn't our session. The second thing that we have here is that price session starts having a push towards the upside. So this over here was already the pre-London session. The pre-London session, we came back, we retested these bodies. Bodies over here and bodies over here, which price session respected and started having a drop towards the downside. So there's already two confirmation, or we can say three confirmations over here. The first confirmation is obviously this entire broken structure. The second confirmation is showing us that price session is having a push. It's attempting to push the market, but sellers are still holding, right? So sellers are still holding around these zones over here, which they are still attempting. But again, since the overall trend is still bullish, that means the buyers and sellers are still fighting between each other, right? So this case over here, this was a gap. Price action comes back and we start having a touch. This is the touch of market structure tapping towards market structure. We have the first drop. The second push towards the upside was the London session. This was over here, the London session highs. Very simple. What did the London session high do over here? We simply came back, retested it, this entire structure. We overlap above the areas of interest. So this is why we don't sell the market right away. Because if we would have sold the market right over here, have our stop loss right over here. Let me give you guys an example. Let's say our stop loss was right over here. We enter the market of basic logic, which is greed, right? We did not want to wait for price action to do its thing. So if we would have taken a trade over here, yes, we probably would have gotten maybe 40 pips, 50 pips in profit. Could have been a one-on-one risk to reward. But the idea of every single trade that we want to take, every single setup that we want to take, we always want to enter the trade with proper confirmations, right? So this one over here, it did have the move onto the second one, right? Let's say over here, we obviously, our emotion at this point over here, if we would have entered this trade, our emotion will be like, oh shit, we have to close out the market because first of all, price action has already closed above these areas of interest. So that shows us that, price action, that sellers are no longer in the market, that price action finally started having this broken structure. So this would have been already like a mindset game, would have been more of a psychology game, showing us that this is where we start messing up our risk to reward. Because this is where we can either cut off our losses or close out the trade and then price action goes into profits, right? So obviously the best idea is to wait for price action to do its thing. To do its thing is simply retest the structure and start having the rejection. That's exactly what happened during the London session. We came here, we retested it, broke above the structure, manipulated all of these entire buyers. Let's say buyers started entering the market right over here. It faked out all of the buyers, which could have simply gotten stopped out of the market. And the reason why I say this is because this could have been a trade that I probably would have taken if I was awake in the markets, right? If I was actually trading around this time over here, probably would have taken this trade because it does match up with my strategy. So good thing we did not sell over here, or let's say it happens during the New York session. These are the type of setup that I'm not looking for. I'm looking for mostly setups that has fake out towards the upside so they can start having the distribution towards the downside or whatever's trend the market is going. So this happened over here during the London session. We break all of this entire structure. Look what we have here. We have an evening star, like a morning star. And then we also have, this is mostly like a doji candle showing us that sellers are already coming into the market. This is the market pattern over here. And on top of that, we also have a fair value gap off the 15-minute time frame. Off a 5-minute time frame as well, which is going to be this line over here. And we also have it on the 30-minute time frame, which is going to be this entire structure right over here. And as well, we have a nice 30-minute bearish engulfing candle, which was a good confirmation. Now, going back into a lower time frame, let's say the 5-minute time frame, I want you guys to notice now the switch structure, the breaker structure. Right over here on the 5-minute time frame, we start having a push towards the upside, which obviously breaks out all of this entire structure from a bearish structure to now creating highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and a higher high. Boom, we have the first broken structure, comes back, retests to use it as area of resistance, a new lower high, breaks underneath these zones over here. What do we form? A new lower low. These are minor lower lows, not major, because again, these lows over here are higher than the previous one. So at this one over here, what happens next was simply that price action came back to retest all of this entire structure. So over here, we do have another fair value gap right over here. This was another retest of this entire structure. This is where price action starts picking up its volume. But again, we're trading off intraday structure. So intraday structure means more than lower time frames, structures, right? So our confirmation is that one, we're retesting this broken structure. We have rejected it off twice, right? And we already have seen a bearish market structure. We have a fair value gap over here, which is also known. We also have areas of supplies. So areas of supplies, we come here during the New York session. What happened in the New York session? We start having a retracement towards these areas. We are seeing that sellers are still holding underneath these entire supply zone. And we are also rejecting off this fair value gap right over here. We have the first move. This is exactly where we enter the market. We got activate our second limit, which was above these above this fair value gap right over here. This is where price action activate our limit, and then boom, we end up hitting every single take profits. Our stop loss was placed above these highs over here. I would have said that if price action would have broken above right over here at 37.80, this is where my sell confirmation would have been invalid. So put my stop loss above these highs, and then my take profit was all the way underneath these lows, which is the same exact profit where I wanted to profit at yesterday. My profit from yesterday would have been somewhere here. In today's market, since we kept trading around these zones over here, my profit for the day was going to be right over here, which, as you guys can see, perfectly smashed. So this was a beautiful trade. I love the idea of this entire trade, right? Everything played out exactly the way that I anticipated. We simply just waited for all of this entire structure to start having the switch of it, right? Same scenario can go off with the bullish. It's very simple. Very simple, similar scenarios. And then that's pretty much it. You're right. If price action would have broken above here during the New York session, then obviously I would have not entered a trade either way if price action would have broken above the structure. The reason why, if you guys look left, we have failed breakouts. There's no volume around these zones, and on top of that, if you guys look on the left side, this is technically a range zone, right? This is where price action was kind of ranging from points to points. You see that? So I would not enter a trade here if I was looking for buys. Buys would have simply been above these zones. Either way, if it would have been above these zones over here, it would have been high risk as well. Because again, we do have a lot of these highs rejection towards the upside. So that would have been high risk as well. But that was pretty much it, guys, of the setup of the day. I'm very proud of the results that we've been putting on. This entire week we've been on fire. So this was Monday trade. This was a 1-3. This was yesterday trade, the loss, the 1%. This over here was a 1-4%. This over here was a 1-7%. This one today was a 1-3%. So again, like I showed you guys the entire profits. Let me show you guys the profit of the entire week. So we're going to go from month. We're going to go from the 22nd to the 25th. We're going to press OK. This is how much we're up with this big account that I'm managing right now. So we're at 14,597. And then obviously this is the account that we're managing right now, which is a big account. Very cool having this account here, being able to manage some big money. So it's pretty cool. That's exactly the trade that we caught today. I hope you guys enjoyed this entire breakdown, and I hope you